How's it going, everybody? This is Adam from TNA TV, and I'm here with a couple of friends bringing you the pre-draft power rankings. This may be very arbitrary as it goes, but we're going to go ahead and put the 12 teams of the GBA in order of who we think is going to successfully complete the season. I'm going to let Tony Danza do his ranking. We'll start with him, I guess.
Hey guys, Crobat for the win. Danza, former member of the GBA, Season 1 champion, and I'm back as an analyst. I'd also like to just introduce Tom before we get started.
What's up, guys? Name is Tom, TomZ1272, owner of the San Jose Sharpedos. Also a former GBA team owner, currently, as well as Danza, part of the NPL, but still feel qualified to discuss and relatively rank the teams currently in the GBA.
Now, it is definitely a very difficult task to try to rank teams this early on, but we certainly did the best we could, and we ready to get started?
I believe so, yeah. Let's do it.
I agree.
All right. So, starting from the bottom of my list, I had at number 12, Mulvone 19 of the
Cincinnati
Loudreds. Yeah, we're getting used to these new names. So, Mulvone of the Cincinnati Loudreds. He's obviously new to the format, but he's definitely a skilled battler. He does have a pretty big channel, so he kind of suffers like the shady problem of potentially not being able to plan as much as he probably should because he's busy with the channel. He needs to prove, in my opinion, that he is willing to put the time into the league in order to move up, and I think he can. It's just I'm not sure yet. I need to see how much time he puts into it over the first few weeks.
I'm going to go next. I agree with that. I think he's new and untested. I do believe that a lot of these new guys we're going to be saying mostly the same thing. They need to be tested in the format, and especially with the new contracting system, how they spend and where they spend is going to be crucial for them in terms of building what they think is going to be successful.
Now, I had a completely different number 12 than they did. I actually had Crimson CBAD, or CBAD, if you will, of the Detroit Steel Wings. Actually, it's my number 12. No knock against him. Somebody's got to be number 12. However, for me, he had zero experience with the draft, as much as Mulvone did. However, Mulvone's been around since roughly about 4th gen, so he has a decent grasp on the battle tactics, for me at least. So that kept Mulvone a little bit higher in my ranking, whereas Crimson, I think he joined relatively recently, so that's why I kept him a little bit low. No experience with the draft system. We'll see how he does. I love to be proved wrong, but somebody's got to be number 12. So we'll move on to number 11 if you want to, Danza.
Sure. Number 11, really, it's kind of a tie between 11 and 10, but I picked Tup, who is the coach of the Pittsburgh Piratas, which is that just rolls off the tongue. Once again, he's totally new. I'm not totally familiar with him, so once again, my data is a little bit skewed. Some of the new people are closer to the bottom. That's kind of the best I can offer right now. Once I see how he drafts, I think I can have a better picture. And once I see how he starts the season, I think there's a chance he can move up.
I have Crimson Seabad, owner of the Detroit Steel Wings, at number 11. Same as Mulvone, essentially. New, needs to be proven, and you're right, he is new, has a new channel, so he does need to be kind of strung in this whole Pokemoning thing. Yeah, that made no sense. Go, move, go.
Adam.
Oh, hey, there I am.
Oh, hey.
I was all on mute and stuff. So that whole Pokemon thinging that we do well, Tom, good job. I actually have Nips of the Long Island Red Rockies as my number 11. And that's because, you know what, he gets a little bit of an edge over Crimson because he did have experience with the D-League preseason stuff, so he has a little bit of experience with the draft-ish kind of based league. However, you know, again, I think he's kind of one of the newer people to competitive battling. Again, that's not to say that he's bad. It's just to say that I don't have as much confidence putting him up high as other people. So for me, he sits there at number 11, but we'll move on to number 10.
Yeah, my number 10 was Crimson of the Detroit Steel Wings. Really, it was pretty much a tie between him and Tup, but I opted to put Crimson and the Detroit Steel Wings at number 10 because I've seen both of their Twitters, and they're both really excited, but I feel like Crimson just has that little bit more of an edge and excitement for the league. I know it's probably a silly reason to put him one above, but they were pretty much equal otherwise, considering they were both totally new and I'm kind of unfamiliar with him. So once again, he'll definitely have the chance to move up during the season if he gets a good draft, if he starts getting some wins early. So, yeah, that's my take on 10.
All right, let me bounce back from that terrible number 11 ranking. I put Tup at number 10. I know he's been vouched for by Fizzy Stardust. I know he has some experience. Again, I'm unfamiliar with him as a personality on YouTube. However, I think that if he's been vouched for by someone like Fizzy, I think he does have potential. And he's new, so he has an adjustment period, but I think he will definitely hold his own.
Let me also bounce back from my terrible pause experience over there. I have actually Mulbone as my number 10. And that's because Mulbone's been around roughly about since Gen 4-ish, and I've watched a couple of his battles, and he seems to have a pretty good experience with general battle tactics. Again, he doesn't have any experience in the draft-based league, but you know he seems to have a very good grasp of how to actually battle. So we'll see if that can kind of correlate to this league as well as some other people can do. But that's what kind of moved me a little bit more with Mulbone above Nips and Crimson, is that he has a little bit more experience. So that's my number 10. We'll move on to number 9.
Alrighty. My number 9 was Dan A-Drive of the St. Louis Rampardos. He definitely has some experience. He started in GBA Season 3. He's got a good 5 games in there. He did struggle some weeks. I think he only got 2 wins, if I'm correct. He does have some potential, and during those 2 wins, he certainly made some great plays, but I do think in order to be a little higher, he needs to be a little bit more creative and think more outside the box. Some of his plays have to be a little bit better at times. I think there were predictions he probably should have made at times when he didn't. I think if he can just clean all that up, he definitely could move up, and that's my take on number 9.
I also agree with Dan at number 9. I think that, yes, he's aware of how to play in the GBA, how to structure. Hell, he had a defensive Latios 1 week in the GBA, among other somewhat diverse sets. However, I do think that overall he's untested in the GBA. I think the 5 games we had in season quote-unquote 3 was a very shallow pool to see how well he could actually do. But I do think that if he does draft well, he can succeed if he does put the time into planning like every team should every week.
Now, you'll see me have Dan at a completely different number than these two. That's because I think I was the only one out of us 3 to actually battle Dan.
I battled Dan, hello?
Whatever, I don't care who you are. So I actually had Tup at number 9 of the Pittsburgh Piratatas. Again, he's kind of a wild card for me, and that's because of the fact that he doesn't really have any videos up, so I don't really know any previous battle experience. I know that he's been around since the Fizzy Stardust era. He told me that he taught Fizzy Stardust how to battle, so I can only assume that he's very good at what he does. But without any kind of information to back that up, he sits at number 9 for me. He's kind of a wild card, in my opinion. He could move down, could move up. We'll see how he does. But number 9 is a pretty solid place, in my opinion, for Tup. We'll move on to number 8.
Alrighty, at number 8 I had Gio of the San Francisco Giants, which is a pretty cool name right there. He definitely has some experience. I think he did some work in the D-League, the recaps, right?
No, GBA recaps.
Yeah, it was in the regular GBA. If you did know.
The GBA, the Season 3 recaps, my bad. So he's at least familiar with the format. He's definitely new in terms of battling in the format, but I feel like, I mean, it might be kind of arbitrary putting him up a little bit higher, but maybe it's because I liked his weekly recaps, but I think he has the capability to do decently well if he can draft well. There isn't a lot of specifics I can give because, once again, a lot of the newer players are just skewed to the bottom simply because they're new players.
Those weekly recaps were actually very good. Go back and watch those, just saying. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Okay. I have Nips, the owner of the Long Island Reggie Rockies. I have him here because I think he has more leading potential with his experience in the GBA D-League tourney. However, I do think that he's going to have a lot to prove, and he's going to have quite the wall to take on with everyone else who's a little bit more familiar with how to play in an actual the structure rather than just a tourney to get into the D-League. Yeah.
I also have Gio at number 8, and that's because, similarly to how Danza said it, he may not have the actual battle experience in the GBA format, but he has been watching. He has to watch all of it to do the recap videos and all of that good stuff. So I feel like he has a pretty decent familiarity with it. So I feel like he'll do decent in the format. That may just be me assuming a lot of things, but personally, I think he's going to do just okay. So we'll move on to number 7 from there.
Alrighty, number 7. We're finally getting into the middle of the pack. Well, I guess we could kind of say maybe 8 is as well. But the dead middle of the pack, basically, Shady Penguin of the New York Yankees. He's one of the longtime members, experience in the format since Season 1. He lost in the playoffs, still at a 5-5 season then. Has from there been average at best. He definitely struggles to think creatively. That might be more because he can't really put in a lot of time due to his channel, and that's kind of why I put him in the middle. I didn't dock him nearly as much as Mulvone for that because he has so much experience and because there have been some weeks when he has put in the work, and when he does, it usually pays off. But he's too inconsistent, I think, even with his experience, to put up higher than 7, at least for now. We'll see how he drafts, and if he can spend an hour or 2 a week planning and getting his teams ready, I think he could very well move up.
All right, I'm just gonna preface this. My 5 to 7 rankings, they're all based on potential. Like these are for me the true wild cards. I'm not gonna go into 5 or 6. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm just gonna preface that they're my wild cards. Number 7 I have is Gio. I think that Gio has a lot of potential. You guys put him a spot lower, but I'm gonna bring him a little bit higher. I think his enthusiasm in his rankings have been like, if he can translate that enthusiasm just doing, not the ranks, I'm sorry, the recaps, if he can take that enthusiasm from the recaps and bring it over into his game planning, I think he'll be fine in the mix with all these guys. Just take that drive and bring it into your team building and even in your battling, and he's set, honestly.
I mean, it's really hard to disagree with you there, Tom, but I have to, loath as I am, agree with Danza. I actually have also Shady as number 7. He's been, so far, a perpetual middle-of-the-pack player. This is a completely different drafting style, and hopefully this will go more to his liking. But so far, he hasn't shown me much more than just being a middling player. He makes some good moves from week to week and then sometimes he makes a couple bonehead moves. But that's all a matter of how you play week to week. However, as it stands right now, Shady sits roughly about middle of the pack for me, maybe a little bit below half, just because he needs to still prove to me a little bit more. But we'll go ahead into the number 6 spot.
Alrighty. Number 6, I actually had Nips of the Long Island Reggie Rockies. Kind of an interesting spot to be putting a new team in. I kind of used, I thought about the fact that he was very close to making the D-League. He's a decent battler, longtime fan of the GBA. He's familiar with the format. I kind of put that all together and thought that it kind of amounted to more than everyone below him. It's kind of sad to say that it amounted to more than Shady, who I put at number 7, but once again, Shady always had that inconsistency. I think if Nips can be more consistent than Shady, even I know they're pretty much best friends, but if he can be more consistent than Shady and get a good draft, then he could be in the running.
Hey, speaking of Shady, I have Shady number 6. I do think I'm agreeing with all of your guys' points. I think that it's very difficult to look past the inconsistencies. It's very difficult to look past the lack of some weeks in terms of planning and in terms of really diving deep into the move pools of the Mons, or really just understanding what can do what, or what like when you say, okay, I don't know, this Mon learned a certain move, like it's hard to look past that. But I do think with having now, I guess, 3 or 2.5 seasons of experience, I'd like to hope that he can draft very well, and that he can create some sort of team, or maybe he's learned what works and what doesn't. And just looking at that, just as a baseline, I think that can be something that we could either build off of, or kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture and be like, well, does he really get it, or is he still kind of trying to develop this foothold into this type of format?
So that kind of puts me into my number 6 position, which, if we're talking about inconsistencies, this is my man for it, and that, I would say, is Steve of the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. Steve will have some games where you watch him and you go, my God, this guy knows it. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. This guy is fantastic. Other games you watch him and you go, this guy, he drafted Malamar. So he's going to sit there at number 6 for me right now. I think he can go really, honestly, either way. If he drafts well and plays well, the sky's the limit for him, because he's very creative with his plays. If he drafts well and plays terribly, I think he could fall very far, because, again, he's very creative. Whether that be very effective is a different matter. But I think that he could potentially very easily move up in this. Just for right now, I have him at number 6 just because he's very inconsistent for me, and until he proves something for me, I'm going to keep him right about there. So we'll go ahead and move on to number 5, which will be roughly about the same story, won't it be?
Yeah, actually will be. I have Steve at number 5, Magnitude, Milwaukee Sawsbucks. One thing I'd like to say is he has recently gone through Malamar Week and has realized that Malamar is not useless. So, no, please ignore what I just said. That was a horrible joke. In seriousness, though, he's... Alright, we'll just get the laughs out now. Alright, we're done. Okay. He's kind of notorious for losing. 1-9 Season 1 was kind of depressing. But many of the games were close. I will give him that. He does think creatively. It doesn't always work out for him, but I'm honestly projecting him to step his game up in Season 4. In a lot of ways, when Season 3 died, he was really upset because it was his baby basically gone, and I think he's going to put that much more time into it now because he wants to make the GBA into something. He wants to make his videos great. Plus, I do think in his last game of the GBA, from Season 3, he brought some really great sets in order to trick John. like he has some kind of momentum from that, I think, in a way. He brought SmackDown Greninja, maybe that was the week before, but that was one of the sets that I remembered him bringing. And if he can bring sets like that, I know Greninja won't be in the league, but if he can stick to that kind of thinking, then I think he definitely deserves to be at least at number 5, and then might even be able to make a push.
Okay, I have Steve at number 5. Okay, overall, he has plans. He has some sort of developing plan to make this season different than the other ones he's had in the past. However, the inconsistencies, and there's a difference between innovation, and I think Chris has said this before, and I've heard other people say this before. There's a difference between innovative, different, that unique, effective type sets and different and effective type move pools, and then there's unnecessary, unrealistic, and there's just like loopy plays and predictions that you make that risk, but what's really your reward? Like, there are times where Steve is on game or is on his he's on his feet. He knows everything that his opponent's going to do. Then there are times where he makes this like loopy bonehead play that you're sitting there, and I watched all his battles, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what are you doing? Why are you making that play when you could just make the safer play and get the same type of momentum out of it? That's my only thing, and that's what's holding me back from bringing him any higher, and hell, that might be the reason I'm going to be dropping him down as the weeks go on, but we'll have to see.
Sorry, I'm trying to stop laughing. So for me, number 5, which obviously is different than their two number 5s, I actually have Hank the Pidgey of the Winnipeg Aquajets as my number 5. And he moved up that high because of his play through a relatively similar league to the GBA called the PBL, I believe he went 12-0, something similar to that. That doesn't mean that he's going to go 12-0 here. It's not the same level of competition. Not to play down their competition. It's just it's not the same players. I still think that he has a familiarity with the play style. The draft will still be a wild card for him to see if he can potentially get as good of a team as he was using in the PBL. But that's the only thing that's maybe potentially holding him back a little bit from my number 4 spot. So I think he'll do well, regardless of whatever he drafts. So we'll move on to your guys' number 4 picks, which also sounds relatively similar, doesn't it?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adam. You pretty much stole 99% of my thunder right there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I had Hank at number 4. I cite his 12-0 record in the PBL. This man obviously at least knows what he's doing. He's experienced in the format. Seems to be a very skilled battler. I've heard a lot of good things about him as well. I've seen some of his matches. He definitely has skill. I think that can translate, that plus his 12-0 PBL record can translate into GBA success. I can't put him at number 1 or anything like that because he doesn't actually have any GBA experience with people in the GBA, but I do think he definitely has the potential to be a contender.
I also have Hank at number 4, so we all just talked about Hank in a row. I'm not going to build on anything that you guys just said. I agree with it. I think that he has the know-how, he has the knowledge, he has some sort of experience. It's just going to be a game of adapting and then playing with some people who also have a little bit more experience than he might have had in his previous league. We'll see, and hopefully it turns out well for him. I have faith.
What can I say? I'm an innovator. I think of these things before you guys do. So actually for my number 4 position, unlike you two, I have Dan this high up. You guys had him at number 9. I have it number 4. Yes, there are a couple things throughout the Season 3 that made me a little bit concerned, such as maybe seismic tossing a Sableye, but I played him, and he's very good at prepping. I didn't anticipate anything like hazard stacking against me when he has a Charizard Y. He comes to play. I give him a lot more credit than I initially would have coming into the season. I think he ended up 2-2. He was still in the playoff running in the division, and that's pretty impressive for an expansion team. And building upon that expansion team, he built a really good team from an expansion draft. So I can only imagine that he'll build a pretty solid team from this new restriction for the new draft limits. So I have high expectations for Dan. We'll see how he does, but for right now, he's my number 4. So we'll move on to number 3, unless you want to talk. No.
Just one little correction, and this is not to knock Dan at all, but he actually ended GBA Season 3 at 2-3.
He was still in the playoff running, so...
He was, but he was 2-3. Just a small correction.
Whatever. Go on to your number 3.
I shall. All right, number 3 is John Pokemon of the New Orleans Pelipers. What more can I say? He was almost the Season 2 champion. He's a very skilled battler, great team builder. There's not much more beyond that. He has a way of seeing the Pokemon battlefield, if you will, differently than everyone else. He makes creative sets, and he knows how to make well-supported teams. I know in Season 2 he was kind of dealt a bad hand in the team he got with the water weaknesses or the lack of water types or whatever he had, but he still made a run with it. And even I know in Season 3 he didn't have the best of luck at times, but he was still doing okay. I think with a new team, fresh new slate, this is going to be his team. I think he's going to be a top contender.
Now, for all you guys, tracking along there at home, you'll realize that we have left 3 teams out that we can kind of agree on from these 1 to 3 spots. Dan's already talked about John. I have John a little higher. I actually have settled on Miguel for my 3 spot. I was kind of wishy-washy on whether I want to make him 2, make him 3. I only have him at 3 because he's a goddamn good team builder. I will give him that. He knows how to make a team. He knows how to build. But the only weakness he has is that he's very concentrated on where he makes his teams and what he builds on his teams. There are only so many Oyumons that they can be drafting. Without that type of concentration in a certain tier, how well is he going to do? How innovative is he going to be? How diverse is he going to have to make the team so that he likes it? Because I know he had some malcontent in terms of what he drafted initially in the GBA Season 3. So how is that going to translate to Season 4 with what he learned, with what he's going to try to do differently, and then how he's going to make his team where he has to actually go through every tier and work with a bunch of things except not exactly just one tier. That's it.
And building upon that, I actually have a completely different person for my number 3 position, which, again, if you've been keeping any track of the remaining 9 teams, you'll know any of the 3 that are remaining. I actually have Cooper at number 3, which, for me, the top 3 are very amoebus, where they can just move up and down, because I'm really, honestly not sure where these people lie. And I put Cooper at number 3 because of the fact that with his draft position in Season 2 and draft plan, he planned for a 2-year plan, which was draft a bunch of defensive mons and then plug-and-play offense, which worked for him really, really well in Season 3. If you guys go watch any of those videos, you'll see that he played extremely well. However, I don't know how that's going to translate into an open draft like Season 4 will be. I hope that he will draft well and have a fully well-rounded team. So I hope that he moves up. So I think that he's a very, very good battler and a very, very good tactician when he plans for things. So I could easily see him moving up to 2 or 1. But for right now, just because of the fact that he had to have a 2-year strategy for his draft in Season 2, that's legitimately the only reason why he is number 3 for me. So we'll move on to number 2.
Alrighty. My number 2 is also Cooper, or is Cooper, not also. His is 3, but I think Cooper is pretty much able to use everything well. He's had some pretty obscure stuff, or some interesting Pokemon, including Aggron last season. GG Ron, as he likes to call
Fucking
it.
Agron.
Sorry, Tom. I hate to bring that up, but I think he makes things like that work. He things like Gallade and Cloister are things that come to mind off my head. They're not typically thought of as top-tier threats anymore. And he's been able to make them work. I know he got the tell in Season 2. There are definitely some others. He focuses on bulk and a little bit of stall at times. Crocoon, or Suicune anyways, he used a lot, I remember. It definitely will help him in this league, because if he can annoy people and win by annoying people with bulk and stall, it will probably actually work. And I think if he drafts well enough to have enough power to balance with some of the bulk and stall that he'll have, then I see him going very far. Some people say, from the GBA's collapse, that Cooper was the winner, or it would have been Cooper versus Fizz, or Cooper versus Gubbs, or heck, I even heard a few people saying Cooper versus me. So he's definitely a top contender, no doubt about it. And I think my takeaway is he's able to use pretty much anything well, and in such an open draft like this with salary caps, I think he'll be one of the ones to use it most effectively.
I'm also going with Cooper. If we're talking about a guy who knows how to make lower-tiered mons work well, like your Gallade, your Aggron, still get nightmares about that goddamn Aggron. If you're talking about a guy who can make things work, Cooper's the guy. He's thorough. He's well prepared. He's smart. He's effective. Nothing he does. I never met someone or never saw someone play so well that they are so in tune with the HP stats of all of their Pokemon. That helps. Just that little thing. That little stuff helps. He can make defense. He can make offense out of defense. He can make defense out of offense. Like he's the full package. The only reason I have a number 2 is solely because I think the guy who's a number 1 has the better plan. But Cooper is a hell of a contender, hell of a guy, and will not sleep on anyone. And no one should sleep on him because he knows what's up and he knows what to do in the GBA.
So, spot 2 and 3 was really hard for me. You saw that Cooper was number 3 for me, personally. I actually have John as number 2. I think both of them are extremely, extremely great players. However, John seemed to do better right off the bat than Cooper did. John was still in playoff contention in Season 3 for the playoffs. He's just a really good battler. He can be semi-conservative at times, but you know what? He plays for the long game. He has a lot of planning that goes into each battle. He's just a very solid overall GBA player, and legitimately, you can't count him out of any battle that he's in, even if he's undermatched. So I have John at number 2 because I think that he can win the vast majority of his battles. But again, the top 3 are very amoebas for me, so they might float around. But we'll get into the number 1s of each person's draft.
Alrighty, my number 1 is Miguel. I'm gonna go back to Season 3 and look at his last game against Fizz. Fizz was a powerhouse in the league, yet Miguel won. Why? Because he was working well with what he had. He was great with team planning, especially for that week, and he's very good at the format. Even in the D League, he was 9-1, or he won all his games. He just couldn't show for the last one, if I'm correct.
Well, he lost to me, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, in the championship, he ended up losing, but still, that's not bad at all. He's very experienced with the draft as well. He's gone through 2 of them in GBA formats. Strong team builder, and like I just said, between the D League and between his 5 games in the GBA, he was 4-1, by the way. He's a very high win percentage. I think if he can keep that win percentage up, he'll definitely stay at 1 or 2 most of the season, and that also is contingent upon him drafting well. Also, maybe it's contingent upon him getting Moto back. I don't know about that. But if he gets Moto back, he might be able to stay at 1 the rest of the year.
We'll see.
Yeah. All joking aside, I just think because of his very broad experience between the D-League and between his start in Season 3 last year, if he can get that good draft, he will be a top contender the whole year.
See, in each of our top threes, we all put John in a different spot. Danza put him at 3, Adam put it at 2. I'm putting John at 1. I believe in John. He was my rival in Season 2 and Season 3. I did get the chance to go 2-1 against him. Yeah, 2-1 against him. Fuck yeah. But I believe in John. I think that he has plans. I think that I think he has the best grasp on what works in the GBA. I think he's absorbed everything he could from people in the league, people out of the league, from Chris, from anyone that analyzes, from anyone in other leagues that's looking on the GBA. He has the best grasp on what to draft, why to draft it, and why it's effective. All those things being put together for a team that he is making. You got to remember, he didn't make that team that he used in Season 2 and 3. If he can bring together what he knows, his knowledge, make a team that he likes, that he has made, that he has built from the ground up, he can go all the way. I honestly believe that if I don't see him in the playoffs, or even the championship, I think that he messed up. And I think he would recognize that he messed up. He's a contender, he's smart, and he's well prepared, and I think that will carry him way farther than everyone else.
It's very hard to disagree with those points there, Tom. However, for me, I also have Miguel as number 1 overall at the beginning. And that's really mostly because of the fact that Miguel is the only one out of really all 11, I guess barring 2, that has experience with a full-fledged top-to-bottom draft. You know what? When Miguel had that draft, he pretty much went 8-0 in the D-League against really good competitors. He's a great team builder. He will sit there for hours to study your all 11 Pokemon and what they can potentially do and team build around it. I think he's very solid in that aspect. That's really why I have him number 1, because I don't think he makes a lot of mistakes. The draft will be the only thing that would be a potential downfall of him because of the fact that Season 2 kind of happened or Season 3 happened and he kind of wanted to trade everything away. However, I think he maybe potentially learn from that experience and will have a very good draft in Season 4. But with that, we're wrapping it all up. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think your 1 to 12 will be and the reasons for it. We love to read what you guys have, why we're wrong potentially, or why you agree with us. It's really, really fun to read that kind of thing. We love your interaction. So just let us go, let us know, and we hope to hear from you guys here soon. Sign off, Tony and Tom.
Peace out, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Later.